Republicans love to talk about President Ronald Reagan. President Nixon, they usually leave him out of the talking points, unless, of course, they're comparing him to President Obama, which is exactly what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell just did in his new TV ad slamming the White House.
Again and again, this administration and its allies have used the resources of the government itself to intimidate or silence those who question or oppose it.
When the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
What does the president believe? Does the president...
Let's bring in our political panel to talk about it. Democratic strategist Doug Thornell, Rachel Smokin from Politico, and Jim Garrity from National Review Online. Jim, usually Republicans are the ones who say people should be talking about jobs. How come the Democrats aren't talking about jobs? How come the president's not talking about jobs? That's not expressly about jobs, that ad.
But to the conservative base, well, it's about IRS jobs. No, this is about this is what the conservative base is up in arms about right now. And if you're running for re-election, there's still a slight chance of a Tea Party challenge to Mitch McConnell. I don't think it's going to happen in this year's primary or next year's primary, but slim possibility of that. If you're Mitch McConnell, you want to be talking about what the base is talking about, and this is something that has the base furious. Now, obviously some good portion of independents are kind of unnerved by this news. So for McConnell, this is just kind of, feeding up the red meat when it's, and serving it while it's hot.
This is an issue, Doug, that I have not heard very many Democratic officials, I should say, defending the IRS, defending what they did. That must mean that it is fairly resonant with voters.
Well, I think both sides, expressed outrage about it. I think with Mitch McConnell, clearly he has concern about his right flank. And I think you run an ad like that when you're worried about either about an opponent from the right or you're worried about mobilizing enough people to come out, because he right now, his numbers are underwater. He's got a 33% approval rating, 62% disapproval rating. His favorable numbers aren't good. And he's staring at a Democratic opponent who might get in the race, the Secretary of State, who could give him a run for his money. So, he, I think, right now is panicked and paranoid, which reminds me of Richard Nixon, actually.
I hear this about McConnell every 6 years, and he always just cleans the clock of the Democrat, Rachel. How much trouble is Mitch McConnell actually in?
I don't think he's in that much trouble unless he's complacent, which he clearly is not going to do. That's when people in his position actually get into trouble if they don't make the early and aggressive moves to stave off any opposition and put themselves in a good spot for re-election. So that's exactly what we're seeing Senator McConnell doing, and he is playing to the base with this ad. But the IRS scandal concerns a lot of Democrats and a lot of independents as well. So it's not purely a base issue the way a Benghazi ad would be.
I have to say, though, Jim, on its face, using Nixon against President Obama, comparing him to that's a fair. I've never seen a Republican president do that.
Well,
a Republican candidate do that.
I will beat my table colleagues to the joke that finally Republicans have acknowledged Nixon is a bad guy. That's the big news.
No, but
in the story.
seriously, that is a big thing for the Senate Minority Leader to run an ad in which Nixon is a bad guy.
Yeah, well, it's the first, when you think of really big presidential scandals, you notice you don't see a lot of ads referring to Lewinsky or even Iran-Contra. It's kind of been lost to the winds of history. But Nixon, he had to leave, so it must be a really big deal. Even if people are there was a burglary, people are kind of fuzzy on the details of it, though. Just go back to the point about McConnell's vulnerability. There are right now 5 Democrats who've been elected statewide in Kentucky who are all contemplating running for governor in 2015. If Mitch McConnell really is as vulnerable as these poll numbers indicate, you'd think one of those 5, or maybe Ashley Judd, would have jumped into this race, and none of them have. Grimes might get in there, but actually the lone Democratic Congressman Yarmouth was actually saying, well, if she's going to get into it, it'd be good if she got into it, kind of wondering what the delay is in announcing her bid. So,
well, but that doesn't mean he's not vulnerable. His numbers aren't good. And whether or not he obviously he's missing an opponent, but his numbers are not. Yeah, but his numbers, and I think that's why you do these ads. That's why he's doing this ad right now, because he's trying to motivate his base, which is not happy with him right now. If you have a 62% disapproval rating in Kentucky, that means Republicans don't like you either. And so I do think that I do think that Democrats are high on Grimes. I think that they're trying to get her into the race. They think she could give him a run for his money. He would be the favorite. But, this guy is not popular in his state, and I think you don't run an ad on IRS if you could run an ad on your accomplishments, which I'm not sure he has any.
Very quickly, I just want to turn to one other person who might be taking a preemptive step, which is Rhode Island Governor Lincoln Chafee. He's he's an independent. He used to be a Republican senator. Now he's an independent governor, and he announced, 2 sources tell CNN, that he's going to run as a Democrat. He's switching parties a second time from Republican to independent to Democrat. This is not a surprise in particular, but this is also about getting reelected. Yes?
Of course it is. I mean, his numbers, we were just talking about low approval numbers. His are not great. My colleague Alex Burns reporting that his office is now confirming this as well, and President Obama has given him a warm welcome to the Democratic Party already. It remains to be seen whether Democrats in his own state will give him an equally warm welcome.
Doug?
Yeah, I mean, Lincoln Chafee's one of the, the last remaining, now he's a Democrat, but, one of those Rockefeller Republicans who was very moderate, and the party kind of left him. And he became an independent. Now he's moving to the Democrats. I think party switchers do have a tough time in races. And we'll see if he can overcome that.
You have 10 seconds.
Clearly he made this move fearing the vaunted juggernaut that is the Rhode Island Republican Party.
All right, Rachel Smokin, Doug Thornell, Jim Garrity, thank you so much.